Thousands of students are facing an uncertain future following the Department of Higher Education's decision to deregister Damelin, Lyceum College and CityVarsity. Now, this decision is having a devastating impact on both students who have invested time as well as money in their studies and the employees, of course, of these institutions. So what will happen to these stranded students now? Do they even have any recourse regarding their qualifications and the money that they've spent? Well, to try and help us answer these questions, Dr. Laura Fisher, Head of Institutional Advancements at Boston City Campus, is here with us to try and, of course, give us some more clarity around some of these questions. Doctor, great having you with us. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being with us. Firstly, what do you make of this decision? And please give us an overview of course, everything of the current compliance as well as standards for tertiary institutions.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I think that there's gold and shadow to all decisions that are taken. So the decision that was taken to close down Damelin and a range of other institutions was made because of non-compliance in an environment where compliance and quality assurance and regulation of, in particular, private higher educational institutions is very rigorous. So the shadow side of it is, as you've mentioned, that, thousands of students are now left stranded because we have a bigger systemic issue, and that is that our public universities are not able to accommodate all of the students that are wanting to get into higher education. So, these students who had applied and got into the respective qualifications are now left, and they're left wondering, well, what am I going to actually be able to do now? Because I haven't been accepted into a public institution, simply because public institutions actually are still confined largely within the traditional classroom walls. And so is there any option? Is there any hope? You asked me to give a broad overview, and my broad overview is that private higher education is held highly accountable to regulatory bodies such as the Department of Higher Education and Training, the Council on Higher Education, and the South African Qualifications Authority. And at all three of those levels, compliance is required at a multifaceted, in a multifaceted way. So it's not just about, we don't take this seriously. Private higher education institutions are dramatically committed to ensuring that the qualifications that we're offering are robust. When a qualification is questionable, or when an institution is questioned by either the Department of Higher Education and Training or the Council on Higher Education or the South African Qualifications Authority, we have to take this very seriously, because private higher education has worked extremely hard to improve its academic credibility in the eyes of South Africans and also globally. And we seek out global accreditations, even beyond what is required of us, to show South Africans we are committed to providing you with the kind of education that is at a top quality level. And so it is absolutely necessary that the decision was taken. Of course, the fallout of that decision is really where the deep challenges lie for the students now who are left wondering what they're going to do next.
It's quite a worry there, Doctor, because, these institutions have largely been seen as, of course, the best alternative because of the lack of space as well as lack of accessibility to those public institutions due to the high costs or the entry requirements and so forth. So I know you touched on it a little bit, Doctor. So what are then the implications for student qualifications in their recognition from Educor entities? Do you think they're still valid?
Okay, so we need to take a little bit of a step back. I want to frame us within a very robust national qualifications framework that we function within as higher education. Right from basic education all the way through to getting a PhD is regulated. It's regulated under the National Qualifications Framework, and therefore, whatever you have got in terms of a credible qualification or a credible year of study will be recognized at the respective level that you studied at, because compliance is so important that regardless of where you study, if you're studying in a diploma, that diploma is recognized as a diploma because it has been endorsed by the Council on Higher Education. It has been listed by the South African Qualifications Authority onto the National Qualifications Framework. So to answer the question, is a qualification that students may have already acquired from the Educor group still going to be relevant? It actually comes down to, well, let's look at whether that qualification was in the first place taken by the South African Qualifications Authority and put onto the National Qualifications Framework. If this is the case, then the students do not need to worry. If this is not the case, that's a different kettle of fish, and we'll have to deal with that in another kind of a question. But higher education has three mandates: access, redress, and equity. And so part of that mandate is that across all higher educational institutions, regardless of where you are studying, we're all studying at the same level, and we're all complying to the same quality assurance standards and mechanisms that are put in place to ensure that if you have completed a diploma at one institution and you now want to go and perhaps go into a degree, then the next institution will be able to look at your diploma, will be able to see this was a credible, academically robust diploma, and therefore credit transfer you into a degree to a certain point. If you're wanting to go from a degree into an honours, the same would be true. They would look at the qualification that you have, and then they would make a decision based on whether the qualification was listed on the South African Qualifications Authority, by the South African Qualifications Authority on the National Qualifications Framework. And I think that that is where South Africans can really take respite and be at peace that we are absolutely committed as higher education to doing everything that we are required to do to ensure that we're not just giving you an education, but we're actually giving you a future.